Senator Joe Donnelly, thank you for joining us.
Good morning. Thank you very much.
Democrat, only one on your party line running for your position, so good luck to you.
Well, thank you.
Why you? Why should you get a second term?
Well, I haven't served in this term as either a Democrat or as a Republican, but as a representative for Hoosiers. And that's what I said when I went there, that, look, I'm not going there to toe a party line. I'm going there to do what's right. And with President Trump, I voted with him 62% of the time. My job is to fight for your family so that it has the best shot at the American dream that it's ever had. A great job, great education for kids, decent, affordable health care, retirement with dignity. I've worked for all of those goals on a constant basis. I've had over 39 of my proposals passed into law while I've been a senator. 17 of them have been while President Trump has been in office. So I've worked across aisles, worked together, actually been voted the most bipartisan senator who's still serving in the last 25 years.
You just mentioned that you have a 62% voting record with President Trump.
Right.
Your opponents are all trying to be associated with the president. Who's the most Trump-like, or who's most?
Sure.
Do you feel like you have to say that in this state that you vote with Trump, or is that part you want? Are you saying that because you want to be seen as bipartisan?
I say that because I want.
Why do you
sure.
say that number?
I say that because I want the people of Indiana to understand. I also served under or with President Bush and President Obama and now President Trump. And it's the nature of the Senate position. I don't work for any president. I work for the people of Indiana. That is the central role of a United States Senator, is to do what's right for the people of Indiana, for our country. And so I mentioned the 62% rating, or 62% voting with the president, just to let folks know, this isn't about politics. This is about making America stronger, your family safer, and your family's future better.
There are renewed calls for gun control in light of what happened in Parkland, Florida, in light of what happened in Las Vegas. What are your positions on things like bump stocks and the AR-15? And then the follow-up will be, what about arming teachers in schools, school safety?
Sure. I'm a strong supporter of the Second Amendment, but with rights come responsibilities as well. And so in 2013, I voted for expanded background checks. If you have mental health challenges, if you've just come out of jail and are on parole for a felony, you shouldn't be able to go to the local fairgrounds on a Saturday morning and be able to lay cash on a table and buy a weapon. And background checks at regular businesses, at regular gun stores, don't permit that to happen. But you can go online and buy weapons and not have to produce any information as to whether you have mental health challenges or other things. That's why I voted for expanded background checks. That's a responsibility that makes sense to protect our kids, to protect our families, and it failed. I voted for it again in 2015. I voted for what's called no fly, no buy, which is if you're on a terrorist watch list and you're not permitted to fly on an airplane, you ought not to be able to purchase a weapon. And that made perfect sense to me, and in light of also staying faithful to the Second Amendment. But at the same time, we lost that vote as well. And so I think those are two things that we can do. We should be able to ban bump stocks as well. Here in Indiana, we actually have a really good law in place. It's called the red flag law, where if a police or organization similar to the police see someone who has challenges, who's acting off, who is looking like a danger to the community, to each other, they can go and take that person's weapons, and then there'll be a hearing to try to get them back. But the whole idea of that is prevention. So if you saw a young man like this Nick Cruz down in Parkland, who you saw red flag after red flag, in Indiana we would have been able to go and take those weapons and say, look, we'll go to court now and get this straightened out. I want to do that on a national level.
AR-15, should that be banned? Clarify.
Well, I think the steps that I've talked about to you already are the things we need to focus on.
School safety, should teachers be armed?
Well, I think we need to harden the schools to come up with better plans to make them safer, stronger. And I think that's a conversation on teachers being armed that's beginning. I have some real significant concerns about that. Does it increase the danger at a school? But I think that discussion is beginning.
As you know, Indiana ranks #1 in manufacturing.
Right.
there was a recent passage of tax
We
cuts.
are really good at it.
That's what the numbers say.
Yeah.
There was a recent passage of tax cuts in the Congress. You did not support that. The tax cuts have had mixed reviews. Have been good for some, have not been good for others. Why did you not support the tax cuts?
Well, we were #1 in manufacturing well before those tax cuts, and we have a strong economy before the tax cuts as well. I didn't support them because any increase that you see in your paycheck is going to be overwhelmed by the increase in health care premiums that's coming from some of the actions in the tax cut bill, as well as some of the sabotage from the administration we've seen. The individual requirements are gone. We've had programs that help to reduce the cost of insurance called cost sharing, other programs called reinsurance. Both of those were about to be put in legislation, and Mitch McConnell wouldn't pass it. And so any increase that you see in your paycheck is going to be overwhelmed by increased health care costs. I was fighting to keep those health care costs lower. Second, Paul Ryan gave away the game. And what I mean by that is the day after the tax bill passed, he came out and said, we have a big deficit. It's like, yeah, it was in large measure created yesterday when the tax cut bill was passed. Raphael, that increased our deficit by over $2.2 trillion, which is going to be a huge drag on our economy as well. But what Paul Ryan then said was, we're going to have to cut Medicare and Social Security to pay for this. Those are programs that everybody who's watching paid into. Those are not entitlements. Those are programs that people worked for, paid into, and those payments are made, and there's a faith that that will be received. Paul Ryan shouldn't be able to cut those programs in order to give a tax break to the Koch brothers or other billionaires.
There's a political action committee group that's running an ad right now with a really nice lady. She claims to be a businesswoman. She says Joe Donnelly did us wrong. Can you address that lady?
I would love to address that lady.
Have you seen the ad?
I have seen that ad.
She's a nice lady. I don't know if she's a Hoosier or not, but she seems very nice, very committed, very dedicated, but she goes after you and says, you've done wrong.
Sure. Well, here's what she didn't tell anybody. She didn't tell everybody that their health care premiums are going to be increased significantly because of this bill. So much so, because of this bill and Mitch McConnell keeping those other parts that would have helped with health care out of being passed, that any increase they receive is going to be overwhelmed by health care cost increases. Number two, as she well knows, Medicare and Social Security there are efforts to cut those and to reduce those. And I think it's more important that our seniors be able to know that they're going to get their Medicare, their health care, their Social Security. Our economy was strong and is strong, and it is not the time to cut Medicare and Social Security to give more money to the Koch brothers. And thirdly, for any of the young people out there who are watching, this increases our deficit by over $2.25 trillion. What's actually been done is they went out. It's like your mom and dad, excuse me, going out and running up $100,000 on a charge card and coming home and saying to their sons and daughters, hey, congratulations, we just bought $100,000 worth of stuff and you're going to pay for it and you're going to pay the interest every year. And that cycle will never end. And what that does is it weakens our country. And so Hoosiers believe in hard work. Hoosiers believe in thrift. Hoosiers believe in balanced budgets and making things work. Hoosiers don't believe in just running up a huge, huge, huge pile of debt and sticking it to your kids. That's what this tax cut bill did. I hope she's listening.
Sir, the other big issue, of course, is immigration. What are your positions on DACA? And the president is now proposing the possibility of sending National Guardsmen, the military, to the border.
These children came here when they were 1, 2, or 3 years old. Not because they decided to come here, but their parents brought them here. I met a young girl who works at Eli Lilly now. She is a DACA child, just received her master's in engineering at Purdue, is working on cures for diseases at Eli Lilly, on developing prescriptions, all of those kind of things. And she said, how does it help America for me to be deported when I'm in the process of trying to help other people live longer lives and better lives? And these children, when folks say, you should go home, well, home is Frankfurt. Home is Muncie. Home is Richmond, because they've lived here. If they're 20 years old, they've lived here 19 years. And so how do we make this work is the question, because it's also critical that we have strong, secure borders. And so I actually was one of about 20 senators that the president came to the Senate and said, if you can come up with a deal, I'll sign it. And we took that very seriously. It was completely bipartisan, 10 Democrats, 10 Republicans, and we met for over a month and a half. That's my job as United States Senator for Indiana, is to try to find solutions that work. And you know, the meetings would have a couple less than 20 one day, more than 20 the next day. But we came up with an agreement that said $25 billion would be provided to assist with the construction of a wall, that would assist with making sure we have stronger, safer borders, and at the same time that these DACA children would be able to become citizens over a 12-year period. And so it would be, they'd have to hit every measure of employment, of keeping their noses clean, and the president said he was going to sign our bill. Unfortunately, when it got to the White House, and we had the numbers to pass it. Unfortunately, when it got to the White House, some of the harsher voices changed his mind, and we were never able to get it across the finish line. So I think it makes our country stronger when these children have a chance to stay here, and at the same time, we need to have strong, safe, secure borders, so I support that as well.
You support sending National Guardsmen to
Well, I think we've seen President Bush do that. We've seen President Obama do that. President Trump has talked about sending some National Guard to the border. The actual number of crossings at this point is at one of, you know, for the last few years, under the tail end of President Obama as well, and now, is at its lowest rate in years and years. But if the president wants to send some National Guard there to tighten it even further, you know, we need to make sure we keep our communities safe.
Roads and bridges are crumbling.
Right.
Probably on your trip here, to, anywhere in Indianapolis, you may have hit a pothole or two.
Right.
But Indianapolis is not alone. So whether you
I travel the whole state.
the
Yeah.
entire state, the entire country,
Right.
any major metro, there are some issues. We've heard over and over about Infrastructure Week. There are plans in Washington to invest in infrastructure. Every mayor you probably talk to when you go around the state says, Joe,
They do.
where's the money? Todd Young, where's the money? So where is the money, and what is the plan to help all the cities, all the
sure.
rural areas with infrastructure?
A big chunk of the money just went out in a tax cut to the very, very wealthiest people in our country, who, by the way, are very, very patriotic, love this country with all their heart, only want what's right for this country, and have told me, most of the very, very wealthiest that I've met have told me, Joe, I don't need this tax cut. Use it to invest in our country. Use it to invest in our roads, in our health care, in our education system. And so that's why I had urged the president that one of the first bills in his term should be infrastructure. There's an overwhelming bipartisan desire to get this done. We want smooth roads in Indy. We want smooth roads in Muncie. We want smooth roads in Evansville. We have an overwhelming group of senators and congressmen to get this done. But Mitch McConnell didn't bring that to the floor. The president didn't make that his key focus at the start. They worked on trying to repeal health care instead. And so infrastructure has been moved back in the list of bills that are coming forward. You know, Mitch McConnell determines what goes to the floor. I wish it had been first, because it's really important to me that mom who's driving a minivan with 4 kids in it not have to worry about getting a flat tire and be on the side of the road where semis are flying by. It's an incredibly dangerous situation, and we need to get it fixed.
So do we have the money, though, at this point?
A huge portion of the money went out in the tax cuts, and so we have to come up with new ways to try to fund this.
If Hoosiers send you back to Washington in January,
Right.
if you are the guy, what are your first 2 priorities? What
Well,
can we
first I
expect?
want to say what an incredible privilege it's been to have a chance to serve Hoosiers. it's a huge responsibility. I take it very, very seriously. And every decision I make is based on what's right for our country and what's right for Indiana. I don't worry about the politics. But when you look at the first couple of things to work on, we have an opioid scourge in our state. And it's not just our state, but in other places as well. That is breathtaking. Raphael, we lost over 60,000 Americans last year to drug overdoses. Over 40,000 of those were opioids. And so it is the constant desire to end this scourge. I've worked nonstop with now Surgeon General, Dr. Adams, with Governor Holcomb, with other folks to try to end this. I've worked on legislation that I put forward that got passed that changed prescribing practices to reduce the amount of prescriptions that are out there. So opioids are absolutely critical. Number two is making sure we improve our skills. You talk about number one in manufacturing in the world, or in the United States. When our young people have the skills necessary, they can get any job they want. There'll be 4, 5, 6 jobs available to every person that's out there with the proper skills. So keeping our country strong, keeping our country safe, making sure your sons and daughters can come home safe at night and don't have to worry about opioids. All of those things are absolutely critical. And then I can promise you and promise every Hoosier, America's best days are ahead of us. And I really look forward to it.
Senator Donnelly, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very, very
Best of luck to
much.
your campaign, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thank you.